Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another live stream slash recording of Hearthstone. It is Sunday, April the 23rd, and we have 3 quests to do. Not a ton of news, and it's kind of odd that there's not a ton of news considering that there's been 4 days, I believe, since the last live stream, because I got a challenge a friend and did that in between. In fact, I have to kind of tattle on myself. We translated that one and didn't get any better. Traded that one. Last recording, I ended recording and I hadn't finished like 7 victories for 100 gold. And we were playing with Loki. I was playing with Loki, and frankly, I had just run out of things to talk about and wasn't paying enough attention, so I ended the recording, and then I got back like 5 minutes later and just played Loki off stream. In fact, yeah, this may be a weird day. This may be the first time that Loki is not online, which is okay, because Loki has proven himself to be very, very dependable about being online. I didn't do the challenge a friend with him, unfortunately, because I did it in the middle of the night and I challenged another character, another friend. So, try to keep things balanced. But today, we need to do the Tavern Brawl before anything else, and then win 3 games with the Warrior and play 10 weapons. We can kind of try to get both of those in the same time, and then play 30 minions that cost 2 or less, which means we're not going to really spend too much time here. Oh, and this is a Tavern Brawl that we've already done. How is that the case? That doesn't make much sense at all. There is also a Hearthstone thing. I guess we'll play our weapons deck then. Hearthstone Collegiate National Championship that popped up. I didn't mention it, but you should have gotten an email for it. And you pick a team, and whichever college goes to the championship gives you the most amount of packs, but I think just picking a team in general would have gotten you at least 1 pack. I don't know. I picked Rutgers just on random guessing, not knowing, so they're in the semifinals, so I have a 1 in 4 chance, 1 in 4 chance of winning, of Rutgers winning, and then I guess that would get me maybe 4 or 5 packs. Probably nothing extremely big as far as rewards, but it's something I did. I didn't even bother to do it as far as my secondary account. Oddly, as I was playing BioShock Infinite last night, which I've done a terrible job. I've only gotten 5 hours of footage in 4 days, which is a ridiculously low amount of recording. I've just been having back problems and sleeping problems combined, and I've also been distracting myself working on my home server, which I made some pretty good progress on, but I doubt very many people want to hear me talk about the ins and outs of configuring an Apache Linux server. But the main thing I need there is if anybody knows how to get MineOS to run on Debian and Linux, that would be very helpful, because I keep trying to follow the instructions and it's just not happening. It really is just not happening. I have been able to set up a program called Calibre that is for ebooks to run as a server, and that's a little bit more difficult when you want to use the SSL tunneling of, so it's an HTTPS URL, not just HTTP, because internally Calibra can't handle any of that, so I have to basically put a proxy server in between it that does all the encryption for it. and Calibri by default doesn't even have a password or login on it. So if you set up a server like that and expose it to the internet, you are effectively exposing your entire library of ebooks just to the internet. And my fear there would be that somebody would come back and go, "Hey, you're just violating copyright left and right there." And there's still a decent amount of work I need to do on my server, but it is getting closer and closer to being the way it was before the SSD on it fried and I had to start all over again. Which was not fun in at least 6 months of me just having the server off and not spending any time on it. That being said, those 6 months in which I didn't want to spend time on it is the exact opposite of what I'm now doing, which is spending time on it, and instead of recording video games, which is supposed to be my career. So that's a catch-22. Like, I really want to get MineOS running so that I have a Minecraft server, because right now, if I was going to do a Minecraft video, I'd just have to run it locally. Now, arguably, I'd almost certainly run it locally anyways, because if I'm doing some Minecraft series, the only thing I would want the server for is just kind of some consistency, like, or what's a better way to explain this, is just to have a separate backup. I mean, it would be slower. If I'm doing any kind of mods or anything, it definitely just gonna run that off my main PC. And then BioShock Infinite apparently sometimes doesn't install correctly, and so I got to a certain point and it was just crashing, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this would be very interesting if all of a sudden BioShock Infinite, a relatively almost brand new game, it's only a couple years old, is unplayable and as a AAA game. That would be very odd that I have to end a series where I haven't even gotten but maybe 4 or 5 hours into the gameplay, maybe 6 or 7, and I didn't know what I was gonna do there. I was like, well, I guess that would save me time, but there's still a lot more to say about BioShock Infinite that I haven't touched. Let's see. But I was able to verify the files through Steam, and when I did that, it reinstalled the files and it worked. So now I'm back on BioShock Infinite. There's so little game in it, though. I mean, really, I've been playing for probably 7 hours, and at least 4 hours of those 7 hours has you walking around Columbia not fighting anybody. And when you do get into fighting encounters, they're nowhere as good as BioShock 1. I mean, BioShock Infinite is such a pale comparison to the original. I did not like it when it first came out. I'm not enjoying it now. I'm trying really hard not to be extremely cruel to it, or what would be a different term to use. Extremely, like, critical of it, but I want to be as fair as I can be, which is probably a weird thing to say. Give a random weapon in your hand, plus I have to do this. That kills a couple of these, and then play this, and then this, and then end the turn. And now this is an 8-2, so when I play it, I can win from that. But yeah, I kind of also want to finish Bioshock Infinite. The one thing I want to do about Bioshock Infinite is I've never played the Burial at Sea DLC, and I think that's probably the better part of that game. But they also kind of said that was the same thing with the Bioshock 2, what was that called? Meridian Eye or Midas? Like, that side DLC that I had never played either, which was a faster experience that should have been its own side game. So maybe we'll find out similar things there. Maybe also the Burial at Sea will change the storyline in such a way that let's see, if this becomes too less, wouldn't be able to play it. I think I've got to do this, and I think I have to kill this. But if I do either one of these, I lose, so I've already lost. Interesting. This really isn't a deck designed around winning, so it wouldn't surprise me if I end up getting one of the daily challenges through this deck, and then the next daily challenge of winning with the warrior through a different one. I'm just gonna stay on ranked, and like, I don't really see a reason not to. I haven't done anything else besides Bioshock Infinite, but I would like to finish the main story of Bioshock Infinite, go back to Borderlands. The comparisons aren't anywhere close. It's hard to compare Borderlands 1 to Bioshock Infinite, in the sense that I like Borderlands 1 and I really don't like Bioshock Infinite. But I mean, they're also pretty different games. Let's see. I suppose, I say this at the beginning of a lot of these streams, but I suppose what's going to happen here, and it's probably true always, is that if nobody comes on because it's Sunday, and we've seen in the past that Sunday streams don't work that great. Ooh, level 60 priest. Isn't level 60 the maximum? So, just assuming that nobody comes on, I'm just going to go through this news and then kind of finish up. And I don't really need to probably spend too much time with this. We may only go for like an hour here, maybe even 30 minutes, as things change. Let's see, attack here, everything. One thing that I came across interesting is I saw on the news, the TV news, the baseball commissioner is apparently thinking about changing the rules drastically to baseball, and they claim it's to speed up the process of playing a game, because baseball is incredibly long, and frankly I think even the best fans of baseball can admit that to themselves, or most of them can, and because of that, it's just not a great experience, honestly. And so the baseball commissioner is proposing about 5 changes, but all the news report was literally 2 sentences. Saying the baseball commissioner or the baseball whoever was in charge is trying to make changes, and it's because of the Baseball Players Association. They're fighting against it and making it so it's not happening, and very biased, and frankly eventually I came down to what I suspected was the case. This was practically just propaganda for this giant Major League Baseball commission against what is effectively a players association but a union. And so I had to do a lot of research to even figure out what the proposed rules were, because it was literally on the TV. This is what basic information they wanted to give to the population, was just the idea that it was going to make the game shorter, and the Major League Players Association is against it. And so clearly one side's the good guys and the Players Association is the bad guys. So then I started to do some research and go, no, this is similar things. It's a good example is like if the Verizon workers or the cell phone workers for AT&T or whoever go on strike, and then the cell phone company said, well, if we pay them what they are asking for, we'll have to raise your cell phone bill. I'm like, and to get the publics to side with the big corporation of the cell phone companies, instead of realizing, no, you probably wouldn't need to do that. You just would, because we know you'd raise the bill no matter what. So I looked at the rules of the baseball players that are being proposed. And I don't know anything about baseball, so I could be completely wrong here. Let me just put that out immediately. But of the 5 or 6 changes that they wanted to make, none of them really seemed like they would make the game shorter. Because they were rules that that would make the game longer, actually. Things, it seemed like they were proposing, instead of 4 balls and you get first base, you walk to first base, seems like they're proposing now 3 balls and then you would walk to first base, which puts more people on base, which doesn't strike people out and doesn't increase the it increases the time of the game. It doesn't increase it. They were talking about making the strike zone smaller so that the pitcher had to throw more strikes, which, while that in theory might make the game slower, might make the game slightly faster, it actually has just as good of a chance as doing the opposite, because if the strike zone is smaller, then the ball is easier to hit, therefore you get more hits, you get more people on the plate. When anybody's on the plate, they spend more time trying to get runs. So it doesn't it just doesn't work the way they're saying it would. And all of the changes that they're trying to do would drastically affect the stats on the pitcher, and almost assuredly, again, I don't know anything about baseball, but if the stats on the pitcher, if he's striking out less people, if he's walking more people, if he's getting more runs with people, the pitcher's stats are going to go down. I am pretty sure the pitchers get their jobs and their paychecks and their bonuses based on those stats. So it's really not even what they said it was. It's trickery by the baseball commission to try to pay pitchers less. it drastically affected the pitchers. And now, as far as batters, well, if they get more hits and more on bases because of a smaller thing, that might affect their paycheck a little bit more, but I imagine not that much. And one of the craziest things was, like, from the 10th inning on, there was going to be no outs and somebody's going to be on second base. So the idea is that all that second baseman would have to do, I assume, is just just make one run to break the tie, and then the game ends. Now, they wanted to reduce the number of trips to the mound, they said, which I don't fully understand what that means, because I seriously doubt it doesn't mean the umpire's going to the mound. I assume it probably means the number of trips for other players coming to the mound, whether that's the pitcher or some of the players who are covering first base, second base, third base. Like, I severely doubt they would limit the umpire coming to the mound and talking to people. But there's not really the greatest way to speed up baseball. It's just a slow game at first. Is get rid of the 9 innings if you're gonna do that. Change it to 4 innings or 5 innings. That's all you do. And even doing that, there's a little bit of a problem, because if you make the games shorter, just in general, regardless of whether how insane the rules are, it seems. I forwarded the webpage I was reading to somebody who allegedly knows a lot more about baseball, and I asked them, I sought out more informed sources, and I'm sure people could probably tell me if people actually watch baseball. I don't watch any of it, so like it doesn't bother me one bit. But it's interesting, my perspective is how the media, and this was a local news station that probably got this from the Associated Press, or I think it was a local Fox TV station, so maybe it got it from the Fox News division of, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the spin too. And certainly Fox does a lot with the Major League Baseball Association, so they're hardly an unbiased source when you think about it. Like Fox does baseball. They make a lot of money broadcasting baseball. They are gonna plant a story every now and then. I hope you like my invention. But inherently, if you do shorten the game of a baseball game, what do you do next is you just double book all those employees and make them play even longer. And it's this weird catch-22 where nothing you can do really is going to improve the situation if your corporate overlords specifically don't want to improve the situation and want to make it worse to make more money and manipulate their employees. So if you changed the number of innings from 9 innings to 4 innings, then you would see double headers, triple headers, is that the name? Like 3-4 games in one day, in which players are required to play, and that's not gonna work any better. So that's another thing to consider. Let's get on the video games though, and like, I didn't have a ton of things to talk about there, and I knew I didn't, but let's see, this and this and then this and then this. Super Bomberman R patch 1.3 has added 4 new stages, improved the frame rate a little bit, maybe all the way, but it still seems like that Super Bomberman R is running pretty badly, and that's 2 new items, which are crowns and bombs, which I assume those are items you can use in the game and not just items that you can decorate your character with. Let's not talk about that one, not talk about that one. Nier Automata's director wants to remake the original, but he'll do anything for the right money. Frankly, this seems to have been repeated by a couple of people, which is to say that the company line is Nier Automata's original game simply didn't make enough money for them to justify going further and remastering. I suppose I could play this, but I've got plenty of time. Let's just play it anyways. Interesting. Interesting choice. I didn't realize that playing on top of it would have triggered the death rattle, but it did. So yeah, even though Nier Automata has made a lot of money, I don't think you can take that good grace of the sequel to redo the prequel. I think more likely what will happen is, and probably the better thing to happen, is that they work on the next Nier game and the original just kind of stays as it is, and it won't be until they've made their 3rd or 4th game in the series that they'll at that point decide that they have earned enough money on the series that they could really sell the remaster. In fact, it's really too early in the usual way that video games get remastered for there to be talk about the original getting redone. Let's not talk about that. PC Gamer says Windows 10's store still sucks after the creation update. I think we could probably have guessed that. Let's see, can we do this? And then this. And then this. And then attack. So yeah, I don't think the Windows Store is ever going to really improve upon itself in such a way that people are going to want to use it. And then the creation update itself is still not bug free as far as I hear. So I found it on Windows Update. There's a button under there that says click here to be one of the first to get the creation update, and I'm just gonna not click there. In trying to get BioShock to run, somehow my password got corrupted. I think maybe that also might have been something around like me setting up my server and transferring files over. I finally got Windows Backup to actually run all the way successfully. It took like 2 days of just constantly updating and just leaving it to update, and I'm surprised it even worked at all, honestly. And in setting that up and setting up the Windows file transfer, which is a thing called Samba, I was doing my best to get the speed up. It turns out that even on gigabit network, because of the speed of hard drives, you only get about 50 megabits per second at best. The theoretical maximum is only 114 megabits per second, which is a lot smaller than the 1,000 that you would assume you could get on a gigabit network, but whatever. So at 50 megabits per second, trying to back up my entire PC took 2 days. It's far too slow, and I don't even know how to improve this. It's like I would need to spend so much money to put in like fiber optic connections or RAM drives just to move from one section of memory to another computer section of RAM, which that wouldn't really work either, because then if there's a power outage, all those RAM drives would lose all that data. The main problem is I've just approached the setup where I'm moving over big gigabyte files, and I don't know how you do that other than maybe an eSATA drive just directly plugged into the back of my PC, backing up to that, hoping that's not that long, which is probably still would be pretty long, and then taking that same eSATA hard drive and just moving it over, which is just transferring the backups there. It seems network-wise, I can't get more speed unless somebody knows out there that something I'm doing wrong with a Linux Samba configuration, that like I had to turn on all kinds of things, like payload offload in the networking needed to be turned off, jumbo packets needed to be turned on, even though the internet says you don't need jumbo packets anymore. I saw a clear drop when I turned them off, and it's like I've got a brand new router that can't even use the Wi-Fi on because the DDWRT still hasn't gotten the wireless drivers on it, and I think it's configured right, but there's so many settings that, and when I need somebody smarter than myself to fix something, there's practically no hope in the universe, because I've never really met anybody who is smarter than me as far as technology goes, which is an ego statement certainly, but it is also the experience I've had. Wait a minute, maybe there was one guy that might have been smarter than me, but he never talked to me, so I could never figure it out. Everybody else, maybe that's the trick, is don't talk and people won't know how dumb you are, and most people do talk. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. We've still got some news to talk about. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.